Hey, Happy New Year. So, I actually got all of my articles covered from last quarter before the year ended. Well, by the time the year ended. So, that was good. And now I'm going to finally do the discussion that I talked about around makeup and social determinants of health. And it is ironic that the day I do that is a day that I engaged in makeup fail because I thought I had already learned my lesson about not putting dark colors under my eyes. They don't actually need the help with bringing things down, and yet I decided to put dark violet under my eyes today, and that was a bad idea. Um, anyway, I did not find anything like the type of sources I was hoping to. Apparently, there's not a whole lot out there that turns up when you search on either makeup and social determinants of health or cosmetics and social determinants of health. And social determinants of health are all the things that affect your health that are part of society, what the society you live in, what foods are available to you, what your built environment is like, what the natural environment actually to some extent is like, whether it's been polluted, that sort of thing. And one of the big things that we often talk about in public health around social determinants of health is how the fact of where you live affects what type of food is available to you. Perfect example, I was out to visit a couple of friends in Oregon this past fall, and I wanted to take their corner store home with me. It was better than my grocery store because you could actually go buy bulk organic food in a corner store, not have to go to Whole Paycheck, as it is frequently known around here, and is not necessarily nearby, even if it wasn't very expensive. So in Eugene, Oregon, much easier to get hold of organic foods, less easy in Eastern Connecticut. Doable, still expensive, and definitely not in bulk. So you end up having to, and by bulk I mean you can take it from the bins and size it into whatever container so that you only buy as much as you need. If you're buying organic here, you're buying whatever they've packaged it as, which may be way more than you need, which means it ends up getting spoiled. It's another factor in social determinants of health. Okay, maybe they've even made it kind of affordable, but not really workable. So my story around makeup and social determinants of health, because you're probably still sitting there wondering, well, what does that have to do with anything? How did we get here from there? I had a lesson long before I knew that phrase, social determinants of health, in how the two might be connected. Years and years ago, back when I lived in a section of Boston, it was a working class section of Boston. Not going to name it, not going to name the specific grocery store either, because it's not necessarily so much about them, because this could happen anywhere. But I lived in this area, and there was one store from this grocery chain that was quite close to me, and there was another that was in a town over, was actually the town where I worked, that it's a much wealthier suburb. I mean, we're not talking hugely wealthy, but definitely far more well off than this particular section of Boston, and also had a branch of that grocery store. And in general, I had learned pretty soon after moving into that area that I did not want to shop at the one that was close to me, at least not for produce, because when I did try to buy fruits and vegetables there, the quality was terrible. Why would I want to buy any of that? I don't care what kind of sale they've got going if it looks like it's already going to be rotted by the time I get it home. So since I did have a car and I did work in that other town, I would shop at the other one. And I really didn't think a whole heck of a lot about it, other than when my car might be in the shop, I would have to take the bus and would therefore go to the one that was closer to me and would complain. Now, again, very working class area of Boston, so my assumption was that this was simply a money thing. The assumption was this is a much less well-off area. We're not going to get people to spend a lot of money no matter what we do, so why bother sending the good stuff? And I imagine that is at least part of what the thought process was. And yeah, also probably what the conscious thought process was anyway. And I didn't really think any more about it very much until there was a time that I desperately needed makeup for something. Now, I'm typically have been an occasional makeup wearer until recently, which, like I said, there's nothing like vlogging to make you rethink your life choices around not wearing makeup. And so typically I've been somebody, and who knows how long this little thing will last, or if it'll just end up being something for when I'm going to point a camera in my face. Because typically I've been somebody who only wears makeup for special occasions. So I imagine I must have been running off to a wedding or something, some big function. And so I desperately needed makeup because when you only wear makeup on special occasions, then it tends to sit around and congeal and be useless when you actually need it. So also with the having to buy in quantities that don't really work. So I needed foundation and whatever else. Probably blush doesn't so much go bad. So I was probably just looking for foundation. Anyway, that was the key factor. Ran down to this grocery store and was brought up short when I realized I could not buy foundation in this grocery store. Now, I'm very fair, you can tell. I have to buy the lightest of whatever foundation is sold in any case, and often that's not even available. So what I used to do, which I've since learned is part of the reason why it wouldn't last on my face very long, but what I would do is get the lightest I could find and then mix it with some white lotion to thin it out and lighten the color a little bit so that I didn't have a beige face and a white neck. And so I couldn't even do that because there was nothing there that I think somebody who is deeply olive skinned would be the lightest skin tone that you could have bought there. And that's when it came together for me. Okay, whether it's conscious or not, you haven't just decided that this is an area where people aren't going to spend a lot of money, so you're not going to bother, but you've also come to the conclusion that your clientele are very dark skinned. So this is where you're sending the crappy produce. Now, do I think anybody actually sat in some corporate office somewhere and thought, yes, this is what we are going to do? No. I think it's a lot of unconscious assumptions, unconscious thought processes, unquestioned privilege, kind of like my own unquestioned privilege around choosing not to wear makeup. I have a colleague at the University of Hartford who is a absolutely beautiful woman from Jamaica, and she is always, her appearance is always completely on point. Her hair, her makeup, everything, very professional. And there have been a couple of times that I've just found myself going, wow, I wish I had that kind of discipline to make sure that I put that much time in. And then I read something somewhere that kind of brought it home to me. Yeah, my colleague probably doesn't feel that she has a choice because women of color have had the message given to them over and over that they have to make that standard. Yes, I'm sure there are plenty of people who see that I show up to work without makeup most of the time and think, couldn't you be bothered? But not with the same level of disdain or dismissal of just even capability at the job as can happen with a woman of color. So my freedom to choose to not wear makeup to work is a privilege. Doesn't mean that I may not return to not wearing makeup to work on a regular basis, but means I need to think about the fact that it is a privilege that I have that choice and that it doesn't have as many negative repercussions on me as it might on someone else. So, coming back to the actual story that I just diverted from, the interesting thing is I went back to that particular store a few years ago, also because of some family function that had us back up in Boston. I had to run into that store for I don't remember what, and noticed that it is now just really done up very nicely. The produce section is gorgeous. You can buy lots of nice, healthy, fresh produce there. But you know what else is also true? I can buy makeup there now. So, has there been a demographic shift, or at least a perceived demographic shift? Did somebody who was less shy than I was back at the time, nowadays I probably would have actually called a manager and said something. Back then I was the shy person who would not speak up if I needed to get off on the bus and the little bell thing was broken. I would just wait till the next stop, till somebody rang for a stop. So no, I was not the person who was going to be able to go up and say, hey, I'm putting these two pieces together and it doesn't look good to me. Maybe somebody else did, but I have a feeling that unfortunately the same dynamics are at play, simply that this particular area has become possibly more gentrified, has become more white in overall population, which it certainly was not at the time. And so yeah, I'm glad that there's better produce there for everybody. I'm sort of disappointed that I can buy makeup there, which is ironic or something. Anyway, so those are my random thoughts and my little anecdote on the connection between makeup and social determinants of health and your ability to buy fresh produce. The flip side of that, I should say, I went when I went to Ulta looking at makeup, because of course I stick with the drugstore stuff, which actually is what I should probably do. But it was the holidays, so you sort of get caught up in all the shopping stuff. And it occurred to me as I'm poking around in there to take a look and to see if my lovely Jamaican coworker could buy makeup there. And as far as I could tell, no, she probably couldn't. So that's another side of the whole picture, is whether things are being provided for people of a variety of skin tones at the higher end of the economic spectrum. And apparently not so much. Anyway, don't know where else I'm going with that. Going to say goodbye, have a great new year, and probably next time I'm back will be with articles for the next course I'm taking. Bye.